Hello and welcome to the Lordly Verdict with me, Mitchell, Lord of my domain. Today we'll be reviewing another game I have called Skyward Sword. See, Hyrule Warriors kinda got me on a Zelda kick. And there's one Zelda game I've really wanted to play for a while now. Skyward Sword, the Zelda game for the Wii. Only reason I didn't play it earlier? It requires the Wii Motion Plus controller, and I got the Wii at launch day. By the time it came out, I would have had to pay $50 for the Wii Motion Plus controller and another $50 for the game. And like many A-list Nintendo games, the value never goes down. Just about any other game, the value will go down in a year or two. Probably less. Assassin's Creed, any of that other stuff, value will go down. Even now, with the Wii dead and the Wii U arising, it's still $40 to buy if you're lucky. Thanks to the miracle of GameFly, I was able to get my hands on it. In addition, there's a simple peripheral I found that converts a Wii controller to Wii Motion Plus controller. I couldn't get it earlier until just recently, and the price is much cheaper. I got it for like $10. And with GameFly giving me the game for free, I finally had a reasonable value. Put it on my rental list while I'm waiting for the 224 games to come out, and well, the game's awesome. See, you know how earlier I made things about Dynasty Warriors in the Hyrule Warriors review? This shows why a repeating formula isn't so bad. See, the first part of it is the story. It's a legitimate improvement over the Zelda games and not just repeating the same thing. And the first part, Zelda herself. Because you see, in most games she gets kidnapped before you really even get a look at her character. And that actually might explain why Ocarina of Time's so popular. I mean, in Ocarina of Time you get to see what she's like. Though she has to disappear shortly after the first 3 dungeons. And a lot of the part of the game is getting to her. But you still get to know her. She still gets kidnapped because, well, she's right up there with Princess Toadstool on regularly kidnapped characters. However, in this game, as opposed to a lot of other ones, the plot's not just about Zelda gets kidnapped. It makes sure to give her a focus from the very start. She's not just a princess, she's Link's childhood friend, they've known each other forever, and they interact for the good first hour, 2 hours of gameplay. She's not just a damsel in distress. She's a strong character while still being feminine. She puts people in the place, she tells off annoying idiots, she gets up in their face and goes, "Hey! Listen! Look! Hey! Look! Listen!" And she isn't afraid to get physical, she pushes them around. And she really does get in their face. It has some nice choreography of their moves too. She's honestly kind of badass. And there's a decent arc with her through the first half of the game, because when she's blown away by the storm and apparently kidnapped, she rescues herself and goes on to accomplish the main objective. For the first 3 dungeons, Link's the one who's just trying to keep up with Zelda. And Link has a good bit of character too. The game does its best to have him emote with just his face and gestures. I have to give compliments to the motion capture artist. He does pantomime right. The Wii finally has enough graphics that they're able to show facial expressions, so Link doesn't need to talk. He goes and he communicates entirely with facial expressions. Without a word, you can see his worry for Zelda, his sadness, his pain, his shock when things happen. He has emotion and you care about him just by having it written on his face. And he does it without being too exaggerated, though he does stagger back at times and get confused. And the final element is Girahim, the big bad of the game and the main antagonist. And he's a darn good one. For one thing, he's active. He doesn't just sit in his throne room and do things. The very first dungeon has him go to Link and say, you're the hero? Well, time to get you out of the way. And you have a big, epic fight, which he actually loses. Except it's a darn hard fight, uses the game's unique mechanics, and his loss doesn't make him less threatening without making him pull the standard, I was just using a small fraction of my power, that battle didn't count. I'll explain a bit more farther on. And it's not just his skill, however. He has charm, he has pizzazz, he's hammy and he knows it. His dialogue's just fun to read. Much like that from the Joker, the Batman at his best. He's a fun villain and he might be a bit one-dimensional, but he's a good one-dimensional villain. I mean, sometimes there's nothing wrong with a bad guy who just wants to watch the world burn. Especially if they're enjoying every second of it. As for the gameplay, it's a Zelda game. Post-Ocarina of Time Zelda game. You have swordplay, you block with your shield, you collect sub-items, you find enemy weaknesses to the sub-item, repeat ad nauseum. It's a time-honored tradition, and it can be explained in one sentence. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It doesn't. If you've played any of the games since Ocarina of Time, you've played them all, and you've probably enjoyed them all. Big change to this one is the specific sub-weapons and the addition of Wii motion controls, and they are awesome and cleverly done. No, I'm serious. I'm not being gratuitous. It's not a gratuitous thing. It's used to allow true swordplay. You don't just go chop, chop, chop. You don't just wait for the timing and parry, though you can parry with a shield blast, and it's a nice timing thing. They really use the motion controls. Even the most basic enemy, the Moblin, blocks in a specific direction. If you've ever played Infinity Blade, it's kind of like that. The enemy blocks on the right, so you attack from the left, top, or bottom. Enemy blocks on the left, enemy blocks up, go back, go down, enemy blocks down, go up. It feels really good. With a flick of the wrist, you go whoosh, 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 whoosh. And you can even go diagonally, and it mimics your movements. It works. And if you have trouble, well, you can always just cheat and use the vertical spin attack, which is more like an uppercut with your sword, or the horizontal spin attack, which is, well, Zelda's spin attack, and it's a much easier move to do. The net effect is you get used to feeling for the enemy's sword and go for strategic weaknesses. Combat's active and challenging. It also keeps the element of hard to recover health, which means you have to try to dodge and keep out of the way. Make sure your shield's upgraded so it doesn't run out, in which case your shield would go away. And it has a nice little touch. Once you die the first time, they give you an ability to douse for items. When you go into first-person mode, you hold up your sword and scan it, and it beeps when you get closer. I rarely died from just normal conflict. Usually it was because I was being stupid. Dying just means you go back to the last checkpoint with progress saved, so it's not too bad. It's not perfect, mind you. Biggest flaw? The dungeons seem both too short and too long. They're long because they take a long amount of physical time to go through, but the actual length of stuff to do is surprisingly low. They're compressed, perhaps. You get the item, you get the compass, you get the map, you fight the boss, you're done. Repeat ad nauseum. There's very little optional treasure chest to explore for. There's really been only one or two keys I've seen. And while there are areas outside, there's again not a lot of tons of stuff to do. Now, the goddess chest system's interesting, but there's much less hidden heart pieces, curious areas to look at. I can see why some of the people have said that it lacks the normal sense of exploration, and the early game lacks some really fun side characters and it's a bit repetitive. Plus, some of the puzzles are less difficult than they are frustrating. They require good puzzles require a bit out-of-the-box thinking, and I like that. And they've got a good few of those. A couple of them, though, require such incredible precision that they can get annoying. And make you think, am I doing something wrong? Turns out you probably are. Except sometimes you aren't. The biggest one is this puzzle where you have to throw a bomb at a specific area. Only it's just really hard to do because they didn't let the bomb get stuck at the target point. You have to get your timing precise, down to the second, and it's just, ugh. Still, it's a Zelda game. It's frankly awesome. The worst of the Zelda games are still better than a large portion of the Direct that I've seen. Even flawed, it's in the top of the Wii games I've played. I really can't give it less than a 5 out of 5. It's just fun. The only reason I didn't marathon it is I had other games on my list and I'd already gotten my opinion. It's a darn good game. I strongly recommend playing this, and I would not be surprised if it pops up on Nintendo eShop pretty soon. Because it's got one problem, and that problem is it's hard to find. You have to get it for $50 on Amazon, but fortunately, Nintendo's now releasing games on the eShop, including Metroid Prime Trilogy, which I picked up fast. And hopefully I'll do a few reviews of a couple of them. Thank you for watching The Lordly Verdict, all 7 of you, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.